what do you do post SUWS? So I travel a lot, give parenting presentations, talk about appropriate use of technology, whatever. When I'm on the plane, you always end up with that awkward conversation. Oh, like, where are you from? What do you do? Tell them what I do. People always get to the same question. What can I do to keep my kid out of your program? Like, what's the one thing I can do? I try not to be offended, but I always tell them the same thing. Take your kid ice fishing. You ever been ice fishing?
No.
Good South Carolina boy like you's never been ice fishing?
No.
Come on, man.
No.
Can you imagine what ice fishing is?
Well,
Boring as hell.
yep.
I'm not trying to insult anybody who's an ice fisher, but ice fishing is boring. You stand around looking at a hole, freezing your ass off. It doesn't matter what you do with your kids, but it's being a participant that matters. So just standing there looking at a hole and being like, that's what I want. I want that moment. So I don't care how awkward you feel. And I'm a big fan of the cross-gender kind of experiences. So mom's doing things with boys, dad's doing things with girls. I want those experiences, and I want you to feel awkward as hell. So what's his interest? Those little figures, right? So like, there's probably figurine conventions. I don't know what they're called, but maybe it's Comic-Con, maybe it's something like. So you're getting dressed up as your favorite superhero, and you're going to Comic-Con.
I'm the one who does that, like, cause.
Great.
Yeah, we've been asked from the.
Keep doing it. Keep doing it. You know, keep doing it. What's your kid? What's he do?
He's a skateboarder, and we go to competitions.
But it's not taking him. It's participating.
I'm not gonna skate.
Yeah, you are.
No, I bought skates.
Great, roller skates. But like longboards, like you're getting on a longboard. A longboard is super easy to ride. Get the helmet, get the thing, like do the stuff. Parents shift out of being participants with your kids into being spectators of your kids. I don't want you to be spectating, because at that point you're isolating. So the whole car thing, I don't care if you're buying your kid a car or not. That doesn't faze me one way or the other. If you're allowing your kid to get a car, either because grandma's buying it or you're buying it or they're allowed to get a job and buy it, that's fine. But you do not start the car experience by going to the car lot where you're buying the car. You go to crappy car lot after crappy car lot after crappy car lot for months. And you talk about, wow, I wonder how greasy this salesperson's gonna be. I wonder how many fab statements we can give him. I wonder how many times he says, what can I do to get you in this car today? And you make a game out of it. You go drive jalopy after jalopy or hoopty after hoopty. And you talk about how crappy the car is. It takes months to get to the car lot because you want the shared experience of how miserable that car is. That's what you're after. So I had a family, kids' thing was paintball. I have a picture of mom completely bruised. And that kid must have stood on his mother and just unloaded the paintball into her. But she was like, it was awesome. She's like, I was bruised for a couple weeks, but like, you go paintball. If the kids, gaming kids, I have a picture of this awesome setup. The kid was a gamer, and so he had the headphones, the microphone, like talking into the internet with his buddies as they're playing Call of Duty or running around. And there's a great picture of mom sitting there right there with him. And you can see the screen, and it's like, 4 million to nothing. She's annihilated, doesn't exist. But she's dialed in, got the headphones on, microphone, and she sent me an email. It's like, this is the best conversation I've had with my kid. And it started out with like, let's annihilate that, you, whatever your screen dude is. And they were a team. And it's just doing the things that you feel awkward at. So often parents feel like, I'm not the expert in this, or I feel uncomfortable in this. Don't stop. Keep going. I don't know what is her thing? I'm not saying go get a penis, whatever it is. Like, yeah, music, great. Music shops, music shows, rap concerts, woo, whatever that is.
We're supposed to go see ministry at the end of the night.
Oh, yes. That is awesome.
Are you really?
Yeah.
That's great.
But it's not going to happen
Okay,
because she's going to be here.
fair enough. But it doesn't matter what the thing is. Like, how awkward you feel. For me, it's like, I don't want to go get my nails done, but if I have to go get my nails done, I'm getting my nails done. I'm going to feel awkward as hell. Mani-pedi, here we go, whatever it is. So just do the stuff, but it's no longer being a spectator. I want you to be a participant. And I am a fan of kids skateboarding, like roller skates, that's a great solution. But like longboards, whatever it is, what's his deal?
wants to learn how to play guitar. That's what he's saying.
Great. Do you know how to play?
No.
Great. It's an awesome time for you guys to sit there and fumble through some chords together. You know? And it's awkward. It's hard to learn new skills. But it's what you're asking them to do. You're asking them to learn new skills in life, to navigate their life. And it's hard and it's awkward. And I want you guys to have that reminder how hard it is, even if that skill is not having a meltdown over a phone. Like, that's a skill. You have to learn the skill. It's hard to learn. So go learn a new skill that you don't know how to do. I have no idea what it's like to play a guitar, but I imagine it's difficult. It intimidates the hell out of me. So enjoy it. So be a participant. There is a thing called the Columbia University Dinner Study. 35 years of Columbia University tracking family dinner. And so they're like, well, what's the benefit of family dinner? We believe that there's a benefit out there. What is it? So they've been tracking it to figure it out. Ultimately, they came up with 3 things. Families that have family dinner 5 nights a week, 30 minutes a night. Ultimately, it has nothing to do with food, so they really don't care if you're actually eating during family dinner. They figured that out later. But it's 5 nights a week of 30 minutes a day of shared time. Allows kids to do better in school, delay the onset of sexual activity, and delay the onset of drug use. 3 fabulous things. 3 things I'm actually not interested in. Because more than likely your kids, at least this side of the room, is, you know, they're already blown through that. But what that does for SUWS kids is it takes a hurdle out of the way. So family dinner, what does family dinner look like? How was your day? Good. What'd you do? Nothing.
But then the 2 brothers go at each other.
Even better. Like, at least you're getting some activity there. Because a lot of times it's like the teenage conversation is going to happen. It's like, oh, this is miserable. But I want you to do it because I want you to build consistency. And I want you to ask the questions. And we do it, your kids do it every night out here. We call it Truth Circle. They sit around a fire and talk every single night. Highs and lows, what your goal was for the day. Did you achieve your goal? What got in the way if you didn't? What did you do to achieve your goal? Sometimes there's a topic, you know, we can talk about specific things, but a lot of times it's just a daily processing group. So you can say to your kids when they come home, hey, when you come home, we want to do Truth Circle. You've done it for 60 days, you lead it. There's books of questions, you know. You can ask the most random ass questions. You can pick up Trivial Pursuit cards. It doesn't matter as long as it's an interactive experience. And what it does is allows you to ask those open-ended questions where for 1,000 days, you may get the same stupid conversation of yes, no, good, bad, kinda, don't really know. Like, you're gonna get that, but you all know. If you're not this way, you know somebody, they have a toothache, it takes them months to go to the dentist. You watch people like, I've got a bum ankle. It's like, go to the freaking doctor. I'll get there. It's hard to ask for help. It really is hard to ask for help. So if your kids need help, they're not coming into your room. They will never cross that threshold because it's way too scary to ask for help. Just like capable adults, don't ask for help. Go see a therapist. I don't know what kind of therapist I want to see. Just call one. There's like 400 in the phone book. It's so hard to ask for help, but we expect our kids to do it. So what does family dinner do? All those 3 things, fabulous, wonderful, great. But it takes the hurdle out of the way. So you're like, 998 days in, like, how was your day? Good, bad, nothing. Hey, that one night, she may be like, hey, you know what? I screwed up or I need help. And she can know in her mind that 5 nights a week, you're just asking those questions. She can count on it. So she doesn't have to do anything other than show up. And so we want you to do that. Not for those 3 other things, which would be great, but it allows your kids to have an open door when they need help. They can count on you being open and just an open question. And it's not a surprise. They know that experience is coming because you're going to sit down tonight and ask them a question. You can't watch movies with them because it's not really interactive, but you can play board games with them. That's fine. That's an interactive experience.
They do family dinner
Great.
at least 3 days a week, right? At
Yep.
least 3 days.
Yeah, get it up to 5 if you can. And you got a divorced household, so sometimes it's at your house, sometimes it's at your house. You do what you can. That's awesome. Didn't expect that, but that's awesome.
We don't know.
Fair enough. And so like I don't know if you travel, but if you travel for work, you know, some families will Skype in or FaceTime in, like, you know, dad's there or mom's there on the iPad, like whatever. Like you do what you can to manage it, but we're after that shared experience. As no matter how miserable it is. And it will be miserable for you guys. Like, 'cause it's like talking to a teenager sometimes is brutal. But just hang out for 30 minutes. Turn your phone off if you can. I don't know, some of you are on call and are important, but if you can, like, restrict the phone use during that time. I mean, it's hilarious. So we talk about the jokiness of the dude talking about the phone that's on the wall. Do you know what Congress did in the 90s? They passed a law that said telemarketers couldn't call during family dinner hours. It was like 6 to 8. It was actually against the law for telemarketers to call during that time period because family dinner was so important. But nowadays, the phone's in our pockets. Like we're checking our text messages or updating our Instagram, taking a picture of our food. Look at this, whatever. So we've brought the invasion into our own home. So let's just put it away for a half an hour. Turn it off. It's great. Engage with them. And then make a game out of every time you go out to eat. How many people aren't engaged with their kids? They're like, oh, I had dinner with my kids. Like, yeah, they just sat on the frickin' phone the whole time. Like, they didn't actually say a word to their kid outside of what do you want to eat? That's not a conversation.
We don't have a phone
Great.
at dinner.
But what I'm saying is like make a game out of watching everybody else do it. Because it's funny. You can learn a lot by watching other people. Then judge them because they're judging you, so you might as well judge them. You know, works out that way. All right. I'm at noon. So it is time for me to make your lunch. It's the same deal as yesterday. I probably burnt the rice. But it's going to be rice and beans today. I got to make you a quick salad. We'll do the same sandwiches, all that same setup. So please make yourselves lunch, get chips, snacks, drinks, whatever. And we'll get started again at 1. Fair? Questions, comments, concerns? Did I answer your technology questions? I think you had some like, what do I do? Where do I put the bucket? Like, you
Oh, yeah,
pick.
yeah, just as long as it's not in the room, but yeah.
Yeah, not in the room.
I do feel like it needs to be a consistent place wherever it is, not
Yep.
anything.
And if you want to let him pick, great. If you don't, fine. I don't care.
Yeah,
But yeah, consistency in this and parenting is huge. Like,
yeah, I know that's where our downfall is, because like before he was on meds this spring, like that's when he was tearing stuff up.
Mhm.
But it was so awful, like he's conditioned us now to like kind of be scared
Mhm.
of what he will do.
Yep.
And I don't know if he realizes that, because it has been a long time, but.
he probably does, which is why he's showing some of the behaviors he's showing here because he's conditioned to getting his way. And so we're trying to break that pattern.
Spoiled, but I mean, like he's been a good kid.
So you're all leaving SUWS. Shocker. So what does that look like? There's a spectrum of care that you're all fairly familiar with. Over here is home. And over here is hospital. And so in terms of the spectrum of care, home, you know, that's all freedom, and hospital is highly confined. There's zero freedom in a hospital. You got the padded room, the locked facility, the kind of shot in the butt. And some of you have had those hospital experiences. You know what that's like. It's not really treatment. It's more stabilization, and then you turn them on their way. So SUWS is slightly this side of halfway. This is where SUWS exists. Typically, and I'd say 99 point something % of all kids that graduate SUWS are going in this direction. Very few go in this direction. And it's generally a conversation around us saying to you, we're asking your kid to leave early. They're not going through graduation because we can't keep them safe. Either they're a high risk of self-harm or suicide, and it's just not a situation where I can keep them safe, or they continue to run. I'm good for about 2 runaway attempts, and then I'm like, all right, I'm done chasing your butt through the woods because you can actually get in a lot of trouble if you're out here on your own. So it's rare that a kid is exiting SUWS and going in this direction. However, there's something here that I want to highlight. It's called an RTC, or a residential treatment center. Some of you may actually be looking at residential treatment centers, and it has the same wording. So in North Carolina, an RTC, or residential treatment center, is institutionalized care. It is, the way it's licensed is it's a big old facility, locked doors, scary. There's a great one down the road, about a half an hour down the road, I'm a trained professional. I walk on here and it's like, these people are nuts. Like, they're crazy, and it's institutionalized care, but it's licensed as an RTC. But over here, you also have an RTC. A friend of mine runs one in Utah. It's a wide open campus. The kids own a skate park. They run the skate park. The public can come and use it. They have a yogurt shop that the public can come and use. The kids come and go, but it's still licensed as an RTC. And the point I'm trying to make is there's no federal oversight of these programs. Every state is allowed to license them as they see fit. So in North Carolina, licensure for RTC is institutionalized care, one flew over the cuckoo's nest type facility, where in Utah, an RTC has a completely different licensing structure. So when you're looking at post-SUWS care, don't get necessarily hung up on the type of language. Whether it's an RTC, TBS, that doesn't really matter. What you're most interested in is what is basically the circle of freedom that my student can have and still be successful. That's what you're interested in. So just don't get hung up on language, because every single state has a different licensing arrangement. North Carolina doesn't offer therapeutic boarding school licensure. It doesn't mean that there's not therapeutic boarding schools in North Carolina. It just means they're not licensed by the state of North Carolina. So my point for that is just don't get hung up on this title. That doesn't matter. It's really how much freedom do they have. So I want to talk about going home first. I clearly run an out-of-home treatment facility. All your kids are not currently living at home. I will also say to you, I firmly believe that all kids belong at home if they can handle it. And by they, there's three things that need to happen for a kid to be successful at home. One is the kid. Sometimes the kid just can't handle being at home for one reason or another. They're doing great out here or they're struggling out here. Some of the examples that you've indicated, you know, he just happens to be a really hard kid. Maybe he actually just can't function at home. Other times, it's the family. And it's not that they're a bad family. Sometimes it's like their situation just is like, parents are like, hey, we want to try and do all this stuff, but I know I can't. I just don't have the desire, I don't have the skills, I don't have the energy. It's going to take a lot of work and I don't want to do it. It's not that they're bad people, but sometimes the family system, and sometimes it's just a really chaotic family system. Kid's doing great. Like, the best thing I can do for you, kid, is keep you out of the home environment, because it's just the family system is so chaotic for one reason or another. Other times it's the community. So we worked with a fabulous student and family just recently. She was from small town Oklahoma. She did great. Her parents were all gung-ho. But where they happened to live in Oklahoma, there were just no resources for what she needed. And so they're ultimately, it's like, look, we're doing well, she's doing well, but ultimately she's got to live someplace else where there's the resources that she needs. So sometimes it's the community. You know, you're all, like, you're probably the roughest in terms of resources, in terms of community. Columbia can be hit or miss. But the rest of you all live in areas where you have the resources available. So, at home, well, forget at home. Let me start with this. 11 months. You have 11 months more of treatment. To make long-term mental health behavioral pattern change, you need 13 months of treatment. That does not mean 13 months out of home care. I'm not saying that. I am saying 13 months of treatment. SUWS is a 2-month kind of head start, and now you have 11 more months. So you can't quit SUWS cold turkey and be like, sweet, we're done, yay, everything's fixed. It just doesn't work that way. You have 11 more months of treatment. So what does treatment look like? At home, it can be as simple as an NAAA, Al-Anon, volunteer support group meeting. If you have a free paper in your community, pick up the free paper, flip to the back where all the support groups are listed. That can count as treatment, all right? Nobody's gonna take registration to see if you're there. There's generally not a fee. You toss a couple bucks in for a coffee or whatever. But that can count as treatment, okay? And certainly a lot of you three should be looking at those in some level. Not because I'm a diehard 12-step supporter, but it's a community of support that your kids are gonna need. and probably you will need. So I'm a big fan of Al-Anon for you guys. And again, not because I want you to hammer home the 12 steps, but I just want you to have a community of shared people. I want your kids to have a community, a shared community. Now, if you're going to those volunteer support groups, or you expect Junior to go to those volunteer support groups, you need to go to them before Junior comes home because you need to scout it. One, because I want you to have the experience. If you've never been to those meetings, I want you to have the awkward experience of walking in because it's really uncomfortable the first time you walk into an AA meeting. It's like, what's going on here? But I also want you to size up the room. There's 52 weekly meetings in Asheville of NA, Al-Anon, AA in Asheville every week. There's 3 that I will let an adolescent go to out of those, because some of them are just not healthy meetings. And so you want to go in and size up the room. It's like, is this a community that I want my kid around? Sometimes the answer is yes, sometimes the answer is no. So go and scout the meetings. All right, then you have outpatient therapy. Many of you, I think all of you, have been to at least one therapist. And it can be a DBT therapist, it can be a family therapist, it can be a CBT therapist. You pick 3 letters, you throw them together, you have a type of therapy. Doesn't matter.
What do those letters mean?
It's all different types of therapy. So CBT is cognitive behavioral health, DBT is dialectical behavioral health, EFT is emotionally focused therapy, EFFT is emotionally focused family therapy. I mean, it's just like there's all different types of therapy. Ultimately, research will show you the type of therapy isn't as important as the relationship. So it's not that there is one type of therapy that is going to fix any particular person. It's the relationship that they have with the therapist that is the most important driving agent of change. So, you all know that depending on where you live, it's anywhere from, $100 to $300 an hour for a 50-minute session with a therapist. If you have the option, family therapy is great. Family and group therapy drives more change in adolescence than individual therapy does, according to research. So if you have a choice, make sure you include family or group therapy in that process. But that counts as treatment. Also home-based are things called IOPs and PHPs. And these are highly dependent upon where you live and what your needs are. A PHP is a partial hospitalization program, and an IOP is an intensive outpatient program. Oftentimes, the curriculum looks exactly the same. It is strictly a way of licensing yourself to be able to charge insurance. There's different pay structures for an IOP versus a PHP, all based on insurance reimbursement. So that's all it is. But generally, the curriculum is the same. Now, there are adolescent PHPs that focus on social skills. There's adolescent PHPs and IOPs that focus on substance abuse. There's adolescent and IOPs and PHPs that focus on self-harming things. It really depends on what your community offers. Sometimes they're attached to hospitals, other times they're freestanding and they're just licensed that way. Sometimes for adolescents, the kid punches in at 8 a.m. to the IOP or PHP and they do schoolwork in there and then they punch out at 3 and then they come home. Other times, kids go to school like normal and they punch into the IOP or PHP at 3 o'clock and they punch out at 9 o'clock. It doesn't really, it's only dependent on like what the PHP or IOP is, how they want to set up their program. There's no kind of, this is the way it has to be. They're very fluid. And it's highly dependent on your community. Like Duke runs a great IOP for substance abuse kids, but I don't know that there's one for social skills or whatever. I don't know what's available in Columbia. I just have no idea if there's one. There's a great one in Charleston, but I don't know if there's one there. Great. And then like Andy Arcus's deal is probably on some elements set up like that. DC, they're all over the place. It's like kind of what you want. And been kicked out of a few of them. Yeah. And that's a great question. Like if you're looking at a PHP or IOP, ask the question, when was the last time you kicked somebody out of your program? It doesn't mean they're a bad program because they kicked it out. It's actually a good thing because the element is the group milieu. And so if you have a bad seed or a kid that's not ready to do the work, you don't want them in the milieu. You want them to be kicked out. So you want to know that they're willing to kick people out. If they say, oh, we've never kicked anybody out, I would argue that's not actually a very good PHP or IOP.
I think he self-kicked out. He just didn't, he stopped going.
Yeah. But that, I mean, that's honestly, it's good that they're like, no, we're done. Like, that's healthy to me because they're trying to protect the milieu, and they should. But all these are home-based. Okay, junior is at home for these. Then you have another segment of out-of-home options. And these are where, if my therapists say to you, hey, we're recommending that junior go to an out-of-home placement post-SUWS, they should be able to give you immediately 3 to 5 reasons why they're making that recommendation. And they're all gonna fall into, it's because of the kid, it's because of the family system, or it's because of the community. They'll fall in within one of those 3 things. But it should be pretty specific reasons. We don't think, X should come home because of boom, boom, boom. And that's why we're making that recommendation. And then you're looking at generally the there's 3 large groupings. There's RTCs, TBSs, which is a therapeutic boarding schools, or transitional living programs. Generally, yours is going to be the only one that qualifies that just due to age, because typically a transitional living program, the kid has to be 18 or pretty close to 18. So in this room, yours would be the only kid that kind of qualifies for that. And again, don't get hung up on this. It's really like, how much freedom do they have? Now, if we're making this recommendation, and if this is something that you want to explore, we're going to ask you to hire an educational consultant. The reason we do is because there are hundreds of these types of programs. And they can be super specific. There's a great one that's hyper-focused on boys 14 to 16 years old that have ADHD and learning disabilities. They're highly athletic. And their whole program is designed around running triathlons. Everything is through a triathlon. Math is done with the wheel circumference, with the bike. Running times, everything is done for the triathlon. It's a pretty specific kid. Like, they don't work with a ton of kids, but it's a pretty specific kid. And there's all these different things. There's social skills programs, there's substance abuse programs, there's anxiety programs. But the programs change. And so there was a great program outside of Park City, Utah, originally set up to work with highly driven academic kids that happen to have a lot of anxiety and depression. But these kids were going to top tier colleges. They were driven academically. And it was a really rigorous academic program. It was a great program. They had tons of freedom. They would go skiing at Park City. They'd go hiking, biking, whatever. After about 15 years, they decided that they wanted to change their milieu. And so they started focusing on substance abusing kids. And so the whole milieu changed. And you wouldn't necessarily put the original type of kid in that program anymore because it was a different population of kids. Things change. Key administrators leave. Key teachers leave. Staff changes. And that's where a consultant really kind of knows, or should know, how is that individual program designed for this kid today? Not what it used to be, but how is it today? How is the current crop of kids useful for them? And so a consultant would kind of give you 3 to 5 programs for you to look at out of the hundreds that are there. All right? Now, you all know SUWS is not cheap. These out-of-home placements are not cheap either. On the low end is $7,000 a month. High end, $14,000 a month. Looking at 9 to 18 month placements. You're roughly looking at $100,000 to $120,000 worth of treatment. So I will tell you, I'm not a huge fan of you guys, I watch parents struggle all the time because they are financially expensive. Some people can handle it, some people can't. I'm not a fan of families cashing out 401ks, selling their house to fund 18 months of treatment. I'm not. I would rather you give it a shot at home because you guys have a life to lead after your kid leaves home, like 18, 19, whatever that time frame is. You then have ideally at least 20, if not 40 or 60 more years, however old you want to be. You have a long chunk of time. And if you cash out all your retirement to fund a 1.5 years of treatment, there's no guarantee that this is going to work. you know? And so I'm just saying, like, if you can pull it off and it seems like you can make it work, maybe it's a little uncomfortable, great, do it. And like, I think out-of-home placement for the needed kid, it's a great option, but it's not the only option. So just be aware of that. And don't, like, I don't want parents to melt down because they can't afford it. It's like, look, you can't afford it. Like, let's move on. Let's figure out a way that would work for you in the home environment. Let's figure it out. Because SUWS kids are successful. I mean, I've been doing this for a long time. And I get all kinds of both clinical, academic, and anecdotal information about how kids do. Kids do great post-SUWS. Is it easy? No, it's not easy. You know, it wasn't easy before SUWS. It's not going to be easy after SUWS. And yet they do well. Will they make mistakes? Sure, they'll make mistakes. But honestly, all I'm looking for is 10% change on your part will drive a whole lot of change on your kid's part. You know, if you go home and you do the same old thing as you did pre-SUWS, yeah, it's probably not going to work so great for you. But if you can enact 10% change of what we've talked about for the past couple days, you'll be amazed at how well the jumpstart of your kid being at SUWS plus your 10% change works towards the future in changing your kids. Now, I left a little gap here because there's another group of services that are transition-based services. And these are groups that will basically work with your kids coming home. You can hire on, they're all over the board in terms of cost and level of investment, but it's like you generally will get a parent coach and a teen coach of some level. They may call it a mentor coach, whatever. But it's somebody that works with you kind of once a week in terms of your parenting stuff and kind of continuing to actively every week check in with you and coach you. And also it gives junior an outlet. Some work only in specific environments, so that the teen mentor is coming to them once a week and is like, hey, let's go kick a soccer ball. Like they're coming personal interaction. Others, they may like, hey, they can text me or call me, but the teen mentor isn't right next to them and available in that sense. Other transition programs, they'll move into your house. They will literally set up, I know this guy who runs the program, he literally sets up a teepee in your backyard and comes in and then tries to connect you to local resources. It's like, Junior needs this, let's go find that. And he'll work with you for generally a month to set up everything in your local environment. But he invades, like I call him a home invader. He moves in. It's like super nanny. It's like, here he comes. So they're all over the place, but there's probably 5 solid ones that we would recommend if you're coming home. And it's just another option if you want a buffer, because this stuff you're really out there on your own, you know? So this would add a layer of a kind of a professional kind of helping you guide through the program. So that's also available. But you need to set either from like, an out-of-home residential treatment center or therapeutic boarding school to an AA meeting. You need to kind of focus on 11 months of treatment. It's kind of your baseline of what you're looking for. It's a big sigh over there. Give me lots of nonverbal communication, lady. I love it. You good?
Yeah, no,
All right.
agree with you. I can't stop once it comes out.
Nope.
Question for you.
Yes, sir.
So obviously, at some point, all of our SUWS kids come home,
Yep.
and we are faced with this decision.
Yep.
Do you and our therapists say, hey, we think this guy is kicked ass, home is the right spot, we believe in it, go, or we recommend after this that you go to one of these spots? Will you guys have an opinion there?
Yes, that's what you're paying us for. And so Tyseer should clearly say to you, I strongly am recommending X. Junior can come home or Junior should not come home. She should make that decisive comment and then be able to back it up with why she is making that statement. And if she can't, I want to know about it. Because honestly, that's part of what you're paying us for, is that insight. So yes, they better give you my staff, my therapists, so Tyseer, Kevin, Alice, better be very clear. We recommend, or I recommend this, and here's why. Yes, sir. And then, those of you that have an educational consultant and are looking at this, you're going to continue to work at that. If you don't have an educational consultant and you're kind of intent on coming home, you'll then end up working with one of my transition people. Hillary is probably the one you'll end up working with. And so if you don't have a consultant and you're coming home, she will help you identify resources in your home area. She's just a well-connected woman that kind of knows the ins and outs of all these different places where we commonly get students from. You know, we couldn't help really with small town Oklahoma, but we've had a ton of kids from your area, a ton of kids from your area, a ton of kids from your area, and a good amount from your area. So she'll be able to help you with identify resources in your home environment. Fair? But you're all leaving, and you gotta keep going. So I get about a dozen kids a year that come back. So I get another dozen that come back as mentors. A mentor is a kid that's been gone from SUWS for a year and they want to come back. So they get on the line, they call myself or Mike and say, hey, I want to come back as a mentor. Like if you were to call me, Ashley, and say, hey, my kid wants to come back as a mentor, it's like, good to talk to you. Put him on the phone, because a mentor has to want to volunteer to come back. I get another segment of about a dozen kids that come back because they generally have gone home and things aren't going really well. And so the parents are like, well, you're coming back to SUWS and we're going to figure out how to get you to an out-of-home placement, basically. It will boil down to one conversation that you'll have either with me, the therapist, or the admissions team. What did you do different? And parents are like, well, you know, I really tried. It's like, did you really do it, though? Did you try? Again, I'm looking for 10% change. I'm not asking you to be 100% different. You're never going to be perfect, and I don't expect perfect, but I do want you to try something. If you want to try fab stimulants, great, pick fab stimulants. If you want to try reflective listening, great, pick reflective listening. Just pick any one of the skills. Try that one. You're nailing it, add another one, add another two. But don't try to do everything at once, because you'll get hung up. It's like, what am I supposed to do right now? Am I supposed to listen? Am I supposed to say I noticed? What? And you won't do any of them. So just pick one or two. Give it a shot, 10%. That's all I'm looking for. And you'll be amazed at how much change happens. All right? Fair? Questions, comments, concerns? I know you had a kind of, I think you're the closest one to grad, so it's kind of like, what do you want to know about leaving?
So, I'm just concerned that so many family members are expecting, you know, I know there's a honeymoon phase and all that.
A completely different kid.
Yeah, and that's just not,
It's not realistic.
and even if the letters sound great and all that, it's not the home environment. We all know that, right? The real test comes when they get home.
Yep, and I'll show you what that's going to look like.
Yeah. Speak to that a little bit.
Yep. This is pre-SUWS. You're way down here. Life is rough. SUWS is this experience. And you're going to leave here. We call it the wilderness high. It is a common phrase. Wilderness high. Yay, everybody's happy. Kid looks great. Letters sound great. Blah, blah, blah. It's awesome. You're then going to have this plateau of the honeymoon phase. It's 3 to 8 weeks, tops. This is a time that you guys really need to practice your skills, because it's going to look like they're working. You're like, man, I'm nailing this. Junior's doing great. I'm doing great. Things are great. You're getting all these wins kind of in your belt. It's like, yeah, I'm nailing this. This is going to happen. And depending on when your kid leaves, and all you are kind of in the same boat, you're probably going to roll out between now and Thanksgiving, realistically. It's going to be returning. Something's going to happen at school or about school. That's going to be the stressor. It's not really going to be you guys. It's going to be school that stresses them in a way that they just tank. And so this is going to happen. And this is when you got to really practice. So you need to prep your family. Like, you're not getting a new kid. I'm not fixing a broken kid and stapling them back together. Like, that's not how it works. It is a kid that has a variety of new skills, but there's still that undercurrent of some of the things that they have muscle memory over. 16 years of doing certain things that build some muscle memory for them. So that will happen, and it will go up. Like, you'll go up and down. You'll have ups and downs. We had a fabulous family this summer. Parents looked at sending both sons to us, but they ended up opting to send a 14-year-old. The 16-year-old kind of got to hang out at home. 14-year-old did fabulous here at SUWS. He did fantastic. But his 16-year-old brother was still a hard influence for him. They were running and gunning together at home. The little one just got sent here. So he got home. Parents called me within 48 hours. Oh my God, you said the honeymoon would end. I just didn't expect it to end. It's like, whoa, slow down. What happened? It's like, well, he got home and his older brother wanted him to go fishing. I was like, okay, so did they go fishing? They're like, well, no, we asked him not to go. It's like, did he go? Did the SUWS kid go? No, he didn't go. All right, so what's the panic? Like, you didn't want him to go. What happened? Well, we asked him not to go for a walk, or not to leave the house. Okay, so what did he do? Well, he left the house. I was like, did he come back? Yeah, in 15 minutes. All right, I'm really struggling here to understand why are you freaking out right now? He didn't go fishing. You asked him not to go fishing. He didn't go. His older brother left. He stayed. You asked him not to go for a walk. He did leave the house, but he came back 15 minutes later. What happened? Why are you in such a panic? What did he do? Did he come back and beat the house up? Well, no, he came back and gave a fab statement and kind of we talked about it. I'm like, so why are you freaking out? What's going on here? Have some you have a 14-year-old boy whose older brother was a strong influence in his life. He didn't do what his older brother wanted. I know he left the house, but he came back and then he talked to you. What's the problem? And so it's this element of being able to see what they are capable of. You gotta see the positives. I know they've conditioned you guys to see the negatives because they give you piles and piles and piles of negative behaviors that sometimes it's hard to see the positive, but you gotta remember to see these kids are making changes. And it's hard. Be a competent 40-something-year-old, 50-something-year-old human, go somewhere for 60 days, change a significant behavior in life, and go back to your home environment and try to keep that habit up. You're asking a lot. It's pretty hard to do when you're competent in 50. Never mind when you're 16 or 14 or 18. So what you're asking them to do is really hard. So don't forget to see when they're actually making some efforts. Yeah, they're going to screw up a little bit, but still notice when they do some successes. Hey, where'd he go, kid? All right. So just don't forget to see the positives.
I have another related question. You spoke to this a little bit. All right, the way I see it, our job when we come home obviously is to provide the best environment we can to be successful, whatever it looks like. All right?
Yep.
It's very vague, but in terms of privileges, I'm not talking about technology necessarily,
Yeah.
but driving to school, which to me is not a privilege. To me, it helps me save about an hour every day, things like that. So do you have any opinion on that kind of stuff? I heard you say something about privileges being earned.
Yep.
But then I have another family member who's a grandmother. You gotta trust him. You gotta trust him. He's done all this. You gotta trust him. You gotta trust him. You do, but you also have to provide boundaries, don't you, when they come back?
Yeah. So I will say point blank out of SUWS, do not trust your kids. You graduated SUWS, you get a high five, a fist bump, and a really stinky hug. I don't trust you. When we talk to SUWS kids, they've dumped out trust by the bucket load. And it's one grain at a time that they're putting it back in there. So grandma needs to understand, she should not trust Junior. She should give Junior a high five for completing SUWS, but that's about it. In terms of privileges, it's low. So you mentioned the car. I'm not a fan of giving SUWS kids a car.
I don't want to,
I'm just not.
it opens up so many avenues.
Yep. And let's pretend he had the car pre-SUWS. He used it to do some pretty stupid stuff.
Yep.
I'm not a fan of kids having access to a phone because it's a high-risk, highly influential experience that generated or at least facilitated some of their bad decision-making pre-SUWS. So phone and car, you're going to wait a little while for that kid. Maybe the privilege is you get to go to hang out at the mall.
Be back by 9 instead of just come home at 11.
Yep.
Whatever it is.
Yep.
That's only logical, right? You can't just turn them loose and expect them to leave.
Nope. And you also can't reward them for graduating from SUWS. I've had families go on vacations what are you doing?
What was the choice, right?
Yeah. No. I've had literally a parent hey, we're going to Vegas. It's you do not want to take your kid to Vegas post-SUWS. So you just don't. It's a way bad idea. Yes, ma'am.
So we were talking about going on a family trip, not as a reward, but just so that we don't think so that's just to get family kind of bonding time, no?
We were gonna do something while he's here.
We were
It was
gonna take a
man,
little
he's gonna be so
extra
pissed off if we do this, and we thought, well, let's,
Let's,
not as a reward, but so he's included.
yeah,
but if-
so I was like a
I'm kind of a big fan of going on vacation while he's at SUWS, and then he's pissed because he's not gets to go. And it's like, buddy, like we totally wanted to bring you.
We're gonna do both,
Great.
but don't go.
Where do you want to go?
We were just gonna go like to the Atlantis Resort in the Bahamas or to Staniel Key.
Yeah, like,
No.
that's high risk. In my world, that's high risk.
Like
Like,
the water park, fun.
I've seen it.
it is high risk,
You know,
in my opinion,
Because
because they will want all these freedoms, and it's like, well, just let me go, 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 rather than getting into the structure that is going to be the norm of his life. So post SUWS, like you graduate on Wednesday.
no airplane on Thursday.
What's that?
No airplane on Thursday.
Well, so if you're going to a residential program, yeah, you're getting on an airplane on Thursday. But realistically, you leave on Wednesday. And I'm going to use you guys because you're driving home, basically. So let's say he's coming home. Thursday's at home. You just kind of checking in with everybody. Maybe kind of you two take the day off from work. You have an event. The other two kids go to school. You're hanging out with Buddy Boy at home on Thursday. Friday, he's going to school. Not to go to class, but he's making that soft introduction into school because he's going to have to start to face the, hey, where you been, buddy? What was going on? You disappeared on us. Like all these bombardments of questions. He's a freshman? Is he in a new school?
No.
Okay, so at least he knows the structure of the school and he knows the teachers. But Friday needs to include an introduction to the school support system. I don't know if your guidance department's solid, he needs to go meet or she needs to go meet their guidance counselor. They need to meet the vice principal, the one who's in charge of discipline. They need to meet that person. This Friday is not to go to class, it is to just do the introductions. And it's like, hey bud, if you're really overwhelmed, here's the person that you need to seek out. And it's like, you talk to them so that's the introduction that's happening, even if they know them from the past. She's clearly been in the school for a few years, like probably knows the people, but it's like, no, we're making a face-to-face meeting. And then on Monday, Junior's going to school, just as normal. And what happens is, the reason we want it, this is our ideal, is because it gets right into the habits. He's coming out of SUWS, highly structured, highly like, this is when you do this is when you get up, this is when you go to bed. It's highly, highly structured. And we want that structure to roll into your home environment as quickly as possible. So we're not a fan of taking a week off and then starting, because it's kind of like, whew, I get all these privileges, I get all this stuff, life's easy, life's comfortable. What, I gotta go to school? It's a harder restart, in a sense.
So when they come back, if there are friends who have been bad influence that you know you don't want them to be around.
Yeah,
How does that
the
play?
D-listers. So it plays out at SUWS. So they have a series of friends that are decent, right? Who are those kids? What are their names?
I can't remember, it's been so long.
That's a weird name. So work hard to find out like which kids are decent kids. Those kids are around. Like you can hang out with Ashley. You can hang out with, this group of people. Cool. And this is in a letter at SUWS. Now, there's also the D-list kids. What's the boy's name? What's that kid's name?
James and Ben and LP.
Yeah, LP, whew, that kid, LP, he's the devil child. So, like, there's gonna be that, like, we are not gonna facilitate or allow these kids to happen. But then there's that gray group of kids, like, I don't know if they're decent or not. I have no idea. And so you're gonna write our letter, like, hey, here's the kids that we want you to hang out with, here's the kids we do not want you to hang out with. But we also wanna know this group of kids, are they good influences for you or not, and why? And so she gets to have some voice, not with the D-listers. There's no voice with the D-listers. LP, no chance, But no, Ashley, I don't know where he is. Like, is he a good dude or not? You tell me.
Kevin just had me do that letter last week, red, yellow, green. Kind of.
Yeah, red, yellow, green.
Ask his opinion of, what do you think about this? Let him have some input, doesn't mean that.
But that letter needs to happen while she's here. Do not, on the ride back to Ohio, be like, oh, by the way, you're not hanging out with LP. What? You want her to have that, what the fuck? Like, you want her to have that in the woods here so she has time to process it with Alice. So Alice can be like, look, what's the big freaking deal? Like,
Well, I think with Helene, and one of the bigger deals is she's gonna be 18. She
Mhm.
can go choose whomever she'd like to hang out with on January 18th.
but it's true when they're 14 just as much as when they're 18.
But
They really are.
hopefully if we talk, or if we communicate this and say, hey, we don't think
Mhm.
you're giving Stephen and Leah because of this.
Yep,
Think about what you learned at SUWS, and is this really a good choice for you?
yep.
And hopefully that foundation will be there.
I would refrain from using the phrase, think about this, is this really a good choice for you? I know you want to say that, but it's kind of like an FU, and the kid will treat it like an FU.
Okay.
And they'll be like, yeah, it's a good fucking choice for me. Might not be for you, Mom. But so I would just refrain from using that sentence. Most kids kind of bow up to that. It's a challenge in a sense.
Okay.
So think it. And the tone and context is there of really, is this really a good choice for you? Like, it's kind of there in what you're saying, just don't say it. All right? Did I answer your question on vacation?
Yeah, and okay, yeah, so we wanna get back into the routine, but maybe vacation then in a few weeks, cause I mean, like, we've missed him. You know,
No.
We wanna.
I heard no. I heard
Yeah.
no. I don't have my glasses on.
No,
We
no.
we have to establish the new norm.
But it's some, like,
You can,
No,
you
we can't do
can,
it.
so you can miss him and realign with him in your home environment. I wouldn't take him on a vacation. I wouldn't.
okay.
Like the next
Just
vac.
like the regular
So what
normal
do you guys do
vacation.
for Thanksgiving?
Oh, when my grandmother recently died, so this is the first year we're gonna have Thanksgiving at our house, not going anywhere.
Sweet. So I got a whole nother holiday. You don't even have to travel for that one.
We talked
Like,
about.
let's get the family in, surround them, and we'll all
Yep.
be together.
So what do you do for, I don't know what religion you are, but what your winter holiday?
We go to Charlotte and visit.
All right. So there's your first trip with him.
That's only 2 days, yeah. So yeah, then maybe like.
Maybe you
Martin
do-
Luther
maybe-
King Weekend, we might go
Yeah.
to skiing or something.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Like honestly,
Let's just get there. We'll figure it out when
Yeah.
we're good.
What you should do is
honestly,
take
you want-
vacations while he's here, because he has been disruptive in your home, right?
That's true, we deserve it.
Enjoy the vacations, and then for the next year, don't worry about taking a vacation.
yeah, I'll get to you one second. But the idea is like you kind of got like by the time he graduates, you're looking at roughly 8 weeks to the winter holiday or somewhere in that frame. I think for those 8 weeks, you don't go on a like there's
Like
like
a
you can go
really-
maybe in a weekend like to a cabin like I don't know friggin' whatever the Smoky Park like somewhere, but you're not going to Grand Bahama or wherever you're going. Mm-mm.
And that's-
I just wouldn't do it.
That's fine, yeah.
So you guys can, you two.
And we got another night in Nashville.
Yeah, there you go. All right, Asheville's a nice place.
I didn't interrupt. Sorry.
You're good.